most meaningful in my life. Because of him, I learned how to play football. Because of him, I went to Watertown High School. Because of him, I went out for the track team. Because of him, I went on to college. The inspiration to me that he was, and to the rest of his family. And he'll be here. Mark my word, he'll be up here. My brother, Phil Renzi, right here. The other one is, when I got word, and Bobby Cabrillion called me, that this award was taking place and there were several other inductees, he talked about Chris Valakis. And I thought he was mispronouncing Johnny's name. I said, it's not Chris, it's John. He said, no, it's Chris. I said, well, I know Chris when he was a baby. I think I saw Johnny and Betty change his diaper a couple of times on Mount Auburn Street or something like that, but couldn't be. No, it was Chris. Well, there's another guy. Chris told you about Johnny. Let me talk to you about Johnny. He'll tell you as a son, I'll tell you as a friend. And probably the best friend I've ever had, Johnny Valakis, and still have. Johnny did go to Korea. 1951, we graduated. He was on a boat to Korea. Went to Paris Island, United States Marine Corps. I'll forgive him for that. Went to Korea, got shot, got blown out of a bunker a couple of times, 3 Purple Hearts. In high school, when you talk about dedication, we talk about work ethic, and we talk about values that we have, etc. Let me tell you about this guy. Go to football practice, walk to football practice at Victory Field. After football practice was over at 5 o'clock, he took a streetcar to Waltham because he had to work in his father's spa. Closed that spa 11 to 12 o'clock at night, went to class the next day at 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever it was, at Watertown High School, day after day. Played the football game, Victory Field, when the field went the other way. Yank, you remember that? You know, it wasn't like it is now. And when we went out, after we won games, because we almost won the Class B championship the time that Johnny was captain of that team. And we also go out and really have a hell of a time after a ball game. He took the streetcar to Waltham because he had to close the store, and he had to work all Saturday night. That's Johnny Valakis. We don't have that work ethic anymore in the youth of America that we have now. If they would look to these people and see what they did, there wouldn't be any problems in the United States of America. God bless you, Johnny Valakis. I had the honor just about an hour ago to receive a remembrance from a very, very good friend of mine, Ann Papadian Foley. And her husband was Dave Foley. And she doesn't even know I was going to say this. Dave passed away a few years ago. Dave was a teammate of Johnny's and I, and of my brother Jay, and was one of the finest football players, basketball players, and the track team. As a matter of fact, that video they showed, there was a couple of shots of another fellow and I looking at a shot put, an indoor shot put. That was Dave Foley. And I got to tell you, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think of Dave Foley. So, Ann, thank you for what you did for me, and God bless Dave Foley. I'm very fortunate for the coaches and as I said, and the teammates that I've had, and they kind of paved the way. I would tell you that I am very aware of the talents and great capabilities of the coaches out there in the athletic field today, but they cannot compare to the Joe Zinos, the Joe Murphys, the Joe Zabilskis that I had, and I really thank them for what they did. Again, thanks. If I could kind of bore you with a couple of stories. I had 2 tours in Vietnam. I would tell you that probably half the group here doesn't remember Vietnam because it was a long time ago. And thank God you don't remember Vietnam. 2 stories I want to tell. Boston. Boston never gets out of you. Watertown never gets out of you. I don't care where you're from. There's something special about the Boston area. My last tour in Vietnam, I was at a fire base up in a place called Chulai. I was a lieutenant colonel at the time. And I got out of a chopper, and we were delivering some stuff to one of our fire base people. And a young sergeant came over to me and said, "Hey, sir, there's a young fellow over here," he said, "we're having a little problem with." and he's from Boston, and he knows you're from Boston. Could you talk to him? And I did. I sat down with him, and we talked for about a half hour, and we talked about everything. We talked about where he was from, and he was from the Dorchester area, and what we did in life, and the schools that he went to, and what we're going to do after Vietnam. I never knew his name, but we made a date. Said after this war is over and after we're home, we were going to meet. We were going to meet in Boston, right in Dorchester, near his hometown. About 3 hours, I left in a chopper. 3 hours after I left, that fire base was overrun, and he was killed. Boston. Boston will never be out of my mind. The other story I'll tell you is a very, very good friend of mine who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam, and he was at a place called the Hanoi Hilton. And 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton. About 150 people in this prisoner of war camp in North Vietnam. And when he was captured, he was beaten severely. They broke several bones in his body because he wouldn't give the information that they wanted to, etc. And he was crippled for months. A cell 8 foot by 8 feet, stone, no pillows, no mattress, 2 pails, one for food, the other for waste. At 11 o'clock at night, you couldn't speak, no communication at all, or else you were beaten, day after day. This fellow never did any exercise in his life, and he talked about, and I'm not even worthy of telling this story, but he talked about they never did exercise or anything like that prior to them being a prisoner of war. But as he got out there, they started exercising and sit-ups and push-ups, and they would have contests during the day. And he got up to something like 400 push-ups, 600 or 700 sit-ups. And those of us who did push-ups and sit-ups 100 years ago realized that, you start shaking after a while and you lose control of your muscles. That's what these people did in order to pass the time of day. Well, there's something else that they did too. They learned a code. And there's a universal prison code. And if you ask anybody who's ever been to prison, they'll tell you about it. And if you organize our alphabet, 5 letters across and 5 deep, and leave out the K, and you can tap out the code. So you look at the letter A, which is your first letter of your first line, and A would be first line, first letter. B would be first line, second letter. C would be first line, third letter. No communication, beaten, almost killed. At 11 o'clock every night, the Hanoi Hilton would ring out with a code. And that code was second line, second letter, G. First line, second letter, B. First line, first letter, A. God bless America. 150 people every night at 11 o'clock for you, for us, so that I could have the honor of being here and sharing this night with you. So remember that sometime when you're looking at that young soldier out there in Kuwait, in Bosnia right now, those young Marines that Johnny and I knew all over the place that will never have the honor of being here. Just remember, will you? Remember for me. It's an honor for me to be here with you. I share this award with my brother Jay, with Johnny Velakis, with Dave Foley. God bless America.